Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's System Administrator webinar. We will be covering the best practices for onboarding and offboarding users. My name is Brandon Vieira, and leading the way today will be Stephen Nasty. After this webinar, you'll be able to configure new users, copy user rights, assign and remove user application license rights, and manage users efficiently. As always, we want you to get the most out of your time today, so if you have questions at any time throughout the webinar, don't be shy. Even if it's because we've gone too fast and you want to hear or see something again, just let us know in the chat. We have a lot to get through, so let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Brandon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. So as Brandon had mentioned, really what we're going to be focusing on today is really onboarding and offboarding, a lot of user setup, kind of going through a lot of the people manager rights, things like that. Really kind of a nice little refresher course for anybody that's been an admin for a while or just taking over ownership recently, or just really just needs a nice little refresher on just how everything looks and operates. So for the bulk of our webinar, and I think pretty much exclusively for today's webinar, we're going to be working in system configuration. And today should be on the shorter side, so we can hopefully wrap up here and give you guys back some time for today. So we're in tools, we're in system configuration, and really to start, what I wanted to do is kind of go through creating a new user and kind of just walking through the process there. So for those of you that are unfamiliar here, this is just your breakdown of all of your regions and offices. So if you were to expand any of these, uh, your kind of this little symbol with the globe is your region, and underneath that is your office. An office could be anywhere from a physical location to a branch. So we have some of them here that we have customer care group, which is a branch here at WeSuite, and we have a kind of a subset under there. So to create a new user, you can do one of two things. It really just depends on your personal preference. You can either select a user. So we'll just take Johnny Cash, who's our go-to. Uh, and we have the one of two ways we can do this. So we have the copy button right here. If we were to click on copy, we can then paste this user into whatever region or office we would like them to be pasted in. So to keep it simple, we'll keep it in White Plains. White Plains is where we're headquartered, and we'll click on paste. So for this, what we would have is just basic information about the user. So we'll just call this Bob Jones, title Senior Accounts Manager, plug in a phone number, our support number that probably some of you know too well. Uh, plug in the cell phone number, and for some reason we still require a fax, which I don't know if I've ever sent a fax in my entire life. So we'll go ahead and just plug in some information here. User mapping, if you ever see this pop up, user mapping ties to your accounting system. So if you have any sort of like Sedona Office or anything an equivalent of that, you'll probably find a user here. If you hadn't created this, let's say if you have a Sedona Office and you haven't created the user just yet, there is about a standard default level, an NA option. So for right now, we can just select that because this user doesn't exist. Beyond that, very basic information, their email. So let's call this bjones at wesuite.com. Give them a username, password, and confirm that password. Once that's done, we can go ahead and click on Add. You'll get this pop-up that says user successfully copied. Click on OK. There is a refresh that is required. So if you're in system configuration still, just close out of it, relaunch it. You don't have to log out or log into the system. Go back to White Plains, and we'll see Bob Jones all the way at the bottom. So the copying feature is really nice because as you saw, I was able to create a new user from scratch basically within less than 5 minutes. The nice thing with that is if you ever have multiple users that have the same rights, same groups, same people manager rights, things like that, this saves you a ton of time. The drawback to doing this is this will mirror whatever you use you're copying. So if you have, let's say a user that, let's say maybe you hired a bulk, maybe you hired, 3 or 4 new salespeople, and you'll have the same rights. I would definitely say if you have anybody in your system that has a similar template, use them. There's really no harm in that. Uh, the caveat to this is if you are creating something that there really is no template to go off of in your system, then it might be a good idea to click the new button. When you click on new, the process is very similar. You're still going in here, you're still putting in the first name, last name, phone number, email, all that good stuff. It's just a slightly different interface. I won't go through that just because it's the exact same information. Uh, the only difference is with a new user from scratch, you're going to have to go in here and add all of the groups and things like that. So you know what? Actually, let's just go through that so we have it. Uh, so Corey Jones, because I'm not very original at all with my names. We'll just call this support. Anything for our user mapping? Let's give him his name, chomes.suite.com. Perfect. Something else to mention here, associated eSign user. This is also something that if you have an eSign integration, some of the integrations will require you to link your like a profile to their original account or DocuSign account. You could do so by just selecting them from the drop down here. This is a live read, so if they exist in that environment, they'll exist here. Once you have something selected, verify and save, and you're all set. Now, something to know with this is since this is from scratch, I think this is a nice little place to start. Uh, you have two groups here. So this is something that came up a lot when I was in support, where you have access and approvals. So what are the difference here? So your access groups, these are what controls what the user can see and has access to within the software. Uh, Really, every system is different, although there is going to be some overlap. Admins typically have rights to pretty much everything, where I would say maybe like a sales user has probably the least amount of rights for everything. Uh, and really, a lot of these can fall in between. Really, what each group is defined is solely up to you. There really is no template. Some of our teams, some of our clients have 3 groups, 4 groups, and some of them have as many as we do. Uh, so it really just depends when you're going through your system what different tiers you want to have, and that's one of the main things for as an admin. You want to kind of establish who should have access to what and who doesn't need to have access to what, because it's one of those things where if you have too many people with too many admin rights, it's a too many cooks in the kitchen type of situation where people can be going in and making modifications without your knowing, and then that causes issues down the road. The approval groups right next to it, what this is if you're ever in a situation where you're making a new user or you're modifying your approval plan and you want a person to be able to approve somebody else's jobs, the first thing to start and the first area to start would be to make sure that they belong to the appropriate approval group. Every approval system, if you add a group to an approval plan, and I'll bring it up so you can see it, and I don't need to deviate too much here, but let's just take one of these guys should have something in here. So a standard group will become a standard group that will exist within your system. But as soon as a group is added to an approval system, like it is right here, so this rule right here, GPM less than 35% requires approval by sales manager in White Plains. As soon as a group is used in an approval system, it then is automatically turned into an approval group. So going back to our user setup, we have our new user, and we want him to belong to certain approval groups here. So the first step would be to make sure he has access to Sales Manager. So we have Sales Managers in White Plains. And then we would turn on the Sales Manager in White Plains approval group. What that basically means is he will now be able to access any job that's currently within the system that requires sales managers in White Plains as an approval group. There's a little more depth to that. Like you would have to go into People Manager and turn on some of the users to approve and all that good stuff. And that's really the baseline. What is required for kind of with that kind of user process with the approvals. Something else to note. let's go ahead and just close out a system configuration and reopen it so we can see the new user that we had made. Go back to New York, go to White Plains. Oh, did I not finish creating it? I must have not have. That's fine. We can just add. I think I saw a pop up that said the email already exists. Okay, we'll use Bob as an example. That's fine. So that's really the middle portion here. Those are the groups, the access and approvals. That's the difference between the two. You need to have access to have approval. Going over to the left-hand side, on the right-hand side here, excuse me, you have a little more depth. So you have your user information, very basic, very simplistic. This is just basically you're saying, username, title, first name, last name, fax, things like that. If there's ever a situation where you need to reset or change a user's password or username, this can be done here through this interface. General, this is something that kind of goes hand in hand with licensing. So the General tab has a couple different things to note. First and foremost is the Enable account. At a baseline, this turns on or off the account. So if you ever want to disable an account, you would toggle this on or off. People Manager, this gives the user access to this People Manager tab, which we'll go into in a little bit. Auto calculate hours. This is there as as a way to auto calculate your labor hours based off of calculations of the parts. Project engineer is if you're utilizing the engineering module. Having this selected means that this user is an engineer within your system. The approvals tab, this is where you would go to turn on your approvals. So if you are kind of flipping through where we were before, let's say we had turned on for Bob, we had given him access to the sales managers of White Plains group. Let's just see if that, perfect. So he belongs to that group. If we wanted to give him an approval system, so basically he's an approver, but Bob has to answer to the VP of sales, or maybe whatever it may be. If we want to add him to a plan, we would do so here through pre and post. So we can just add him to a plan really quick. If you ever see region and office priority, these two checkboxes are tied to the region and office. So without doing too much of a detour here, if I were to click on customer care group, for instance, you can set an approval system for the region and also to the office, as granular as you would like. And the reason for that is if you are having a user quote outside of their region. So let's say you're a company that has, 3 branches, 3 different offices, whatever it may be, maybe different physical locations. If a user were to do an approval system outside of his Nowhere region, so let's say, Bob is in the New York region, but he's quoting to the customer care group region, then you would take the standard for that approval system. So it would say, it would look for whatever the default is for that, and it would then go through their approval process. Why that might be good is each branch might handle things differently. They might operate differently. And just because I may be an approver in one branch, I don't have authority or I don't know how another branch operates. So having this checkbox on, having a region priority and office priority will prioritize the region and office default. Quotas. So quotas, you can set per user. I know everybody doesn't use quotas, but if you utilize quotas and you want to track them, quotas are configured through this tab. The total amount is controlled, is a calculation off the quarterly. So if we were to add, 5,000, 1,000, or maybe 1,000, I know it's a pretty low quota, but um, you're able to calculate it up top. So if this is how you would set a quota within your system. Quotas are also tracked on the ERG and other various reports. So if you are quota based for your sales department and you want to plug it in, I would highly recommend just doing that. It's a nice little way on the ERG to track to see how you're doing versus your quota, how your team's doing versus their quota, and it gives a nice little percentage to see how far along they are. So I would highly recommend that. If you need any help doing that, just give me a shout. Let me know. More than happy to walk you through it. But it's as simple as just clicking on and going through each quarter. If you were to unfortunately go to annual sales and try to type in here, nothing would happen, or annual RMR, nothing would happen. You just have to break it out by quarter. If you click on configure, It will also tell you past years as well. So if you ever wanted to see what your quotas were for the past, you can take a look at there as well. Okay. Beyond that, the only other tip I want to show here at a high level was licensing. So I had mentioned earlier that in the general tab, there's this enable account and then there's licensing. So these kind of go hand in hand. One of the things that we always like to kind of stress here is when you disable an account, so let's say we're going to turn off Bob, he wouldn't be able to access the application. He wouldn't be able to log in. He wouldn't be able to access his account. But the caveat to this is, or the kind of additional thing to this is that you couldn't even see his proposals. So if Bob had, 50 quotes under his account, he wouldn't be able to, those quotes would still exist, but they would be in limbo because his account's deactivated. Those accounts would be there, but they're not searchable. So what we would recommend is if you go into licensing, all of these applications are all of the or these checkboxes, excuse me, are all of the applications within our system. So you'll see, quote anywhere, site survey, we estimate, we opportunity, we speak of. All of these guys here are broken out by application, so you can see also when it was added as well. So what I would say if you're, let's say Bob is no longer with the organization, but Bob also has, 15 quotes or 20 quotes under his profile still, turn off the we estimate license. Keep in the general tab, keep account enable account checked off. What that'll do is that'll allow the account the jobs to still be searchable. So if you have rights over Bob, you can still view his quotes, but Bob can no longer log in. His account wouldn't be accessible, and you wouldn't be charged. So we have a lot of our users do one of two things. They'll either just turn off the licenses, keep the accounts active, and just leave it that way. Or some of our users, what they'll do is they will, temporarily strip away the licensing, keep the account enabled, move everything over, do like a bin pass, move everything over to a different account, and then disable the account. So it's no longer listed out in kind of the active users. So it's really more of a stylistic choice. It depends on what you would like. There's really no wrong answer. For me, I keep them active until they don't have anything under them, and then I move them over, and I deactivate them, move them over. This way, when you're looking at your list, you don't see them listed out here. You would see them populate in this all bucket. So in the all, if we were to expand any of this and take it like White Plains, for instance, anything with a red X is something that's no longer active. So you see a whole bunch of red X's here. Okay, awesome. So kind of just carrying through it. If you guys have any questions throughout, please feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to answer anything that you guys have. Kind of moving over here in the meantime, People Manager. So this is another tab. We go back to Johnny here. The People Manager is controlled, as I had mentioned before, through this People Manager checkbox in the General tab. And People Manager, so we'll expand any of these guys. Let's go to Customer Care Group. Let's expand Marketing. Let's find Tammy. Perfect. So there's going to be a list of a couple different rights here. So something to note at a baseline, the outermost checkbox, the one that's right here, right next to Tammy, that my mouse is kind of hovering around, that gives you at a baseline access to all of Tammy's or whomever the user's name is, access to all their quotes. So you can see all of her jobs, you can see all of her, projects, things along those lines, and you can interact with them. Below that, there's a giant subset of options. I'll kind of go through all those right now. So approvals. Approvals basically grants you the rights to approve jobs for the selected user, assuming that you belong to the main approval group here. Read only. A read only allows you to open up any of the proposals that Tammy were to have, but you're not able to edit them. They will kind of appear in this read only state. So if you've ever opened up a job that's been won before or approved or anything along those lines, it'll have this little pinkish box to say that it's read only. We have this option there, so just in case there are situations where you want to see other people's quotes, but you don't have a need to interact with them or make any changes to them. Bin passing, pretty self-explanatory. Bin passing allows the selected user to have the option bin pass to. So then say Johnny Cash, this user that's highlighted here, can bin pass to Tammy Reynolds. This has to be turned on. It's not bi-directional, so you have to turn it on the other way around. So Tammy would have to log in. You have to find Tammy's profile, then turn it on for Johnny Cash. So this way would only be a one-way pass. Splits allows you to do a commission split with a selected user. So if you are doing commission splits fairly frequently or whatever it may be, having splits turned on would enable this tab within commissions to allow you to say what percentage of the commission goes to what user. Managed, so marks you as the user's manager. So manager is a commission right. So there is something within commissions that every user can only have one manager, and there is something in the commission process called a manager override. What that does is that allows you to input a custom commission amount if there was ever a situation where the commissions got messed up or the calculation was off, or if there was ever a special case where you had to do some manual adjustments. Counting import. Counting import grants rights to you to import jobs won by the selected user to your accounting system. So if you're utilizing a Sedona or an accounting equivalent, this would allow you to be able to move these jobs into Sedona as work orders on the user's behalf. Commissions. This allows you to manage the commissions for the selected user. So it also allows you to select them during the commission erg. So we have a commissions erg as well, right next to the main erg. So you have this commission checkbox turned on. You can then search for them here. But having this checkbox enabled allows you to see the commissions tab within the quote. If you don't have this checkbox turned on, you just wouldn't see the commissions tab. The commissions tab is generally only shown for the owner of the quote, but this is like an admin feature. Approval emails. Approval emails allows you to receive an email every time the selected user submits a job for approval. So generally speaking, approval emails and approvals go hand in hand. The only thing to know is that this gives you the right to approve the job. This gives you the notification to say, hey, Johnny submitted, or Bob, whomever, submitted a job for approval. It's job number 500. This is basic information. Master override. So master override, kind of to explain this, job sharing removes any shared user from the approval process. So this means if you share a job with your sales manager, then my sales manager would not be able to approve the job because I share the job with them. Master override is used to override this rule. So basically, this is a way to say, if I'm doing a job sharing process with somebody else, whoever owns the job with me can't approve the job for obvious reasons. Having this turned on bypasses that rule set. Job sharing, kind of again, some of these go hand in hand. Job sharing allows you to basically right click on any quote and select share manager and select the user. Basically what that means and what that ultimately does is that gives the other user access as a job owner. So then you would see the job appear under both of your buckets, both of your bins, and you're both able to log in and make changes to it. Again, it's more of a situational use. I would say it's used more for like a production split to go in line with a commission split. So if you're ever working on a job with somebody else simultaneously, you're able to select the job sharing feature and then have kind of a split record. Something to know with that is if you are utilizing the erg, this would cause two line items to appear to show the ownership for the quote for as many different users as there are. Lastly, summary report email. So basically, when the selected user wins a job, so in this case, Johnny Cash, you'll get an email copy just of the basic information of the summary report sent to your email. So it's more of a completely optional way to say, as an admin, I want to, be notified of whether this person wins the job, and I want to get a summary report of that. Again, totally optional, but if you like it, it's listed there. Okay, awesome, guys. I'll just keep trucking through here, so you have a little bit more to go through, and we're pretty much all set. Lastly, the only thing that I really wanted to show here, or one of the last things, is thresholds. So thresholds, uh, not widely used, but thresholds allow you to basically put restrictions, so to speak, on users. they kind of function as a secondary form of approvals. So if you're utilizing approvals, but you want to be able to enforce or have the system auto enforce certain policies, you can do so through thresholds. So each user has a custom threshold for them. You can set upper estimate values and lower estimate values. So this gives you just a flat range, of just raw dollars. You can have upper GPM or lower GPM percent. So if you want to do GPM based, and then you can also do item thresholds. So you can do additional hours, which is labor, burden percentage is labor GPM, and so on and so forth. So so thresholds generally, the best way that I can say that they're an automated form of approvals to say if any of these thresholds are met, whether it's the upper threshold or the lower, and that's basically just your range, that automatically stop the user from being able to use that. Some of our bigger accounts use this as just a secondary form of approvals to say, yeah, listen, buddy, you can't have a GPM of less than 10. If you're doing that, sorry, it's just going to block you immediately. So this is a nice, just little secondary way to go through that. Again, totally optional, not necessary, but it's there for you if you need it. Grid rights, I wouldn't really go too much into this. This is really more of a webinar in and of itself. But if you're ever in a case from an admin side of things where you want to monitor and change any sorts of kind of grid right options, and these are all per user, and generally speaking, these are all within the job. All of this information is listed out here. And again, this is a webinar in and of itself. But we have things for equipment, for labor, chargeable items, RMR, and they could be anything from which description to show, the sales description, a regular description, quantity, things like that. So I can keep this up for a little bit here, so you can kind of scroll through some of these. But the main purpose of this is to say, is it visible? So can the user see it? And is it editable? Can they make changes to it? And this is per user. In program options, there's a global form of this to make it across the board and uniform. But if you ever have situations where you want to do it per user, it's listed out here. We'll skip over labor rights for right now. And then lastly, in this tab, commissions. Commissions, again, they're a webinar in and of itself. But if you are working on commissions, changing commissions, making commission plans, the two things to know here is that the commission plan will be listed out in the dropdown. So you have all of your commission plans in your system here in the dropdown. And once a commission plan is assigned, the only thing to know is that make sure that you switch this over from use default rates to use commission plan rates. When use commission plan rates is turned on, the system will then take the configuration, the settings of the commission plan that was selected. Okay. So with that being said, guys, that was pretty much everything I had for today. Onboarding and offboarding users, it's a nice one to see as a nice little refresher, because we're actively making changes to a lot of these options, and we're, cleaning up a little bit the interface and things along those lines. So it's a nice little refresher to kind of walk through. So any questions before I go ahead and turn it over to Brandon and, kind of wrap us up here? Okay, perfect. I'm not seeing anything, so we'll turn it over to Brandon, who will let you know what's coming down the pipeline, and we'll give you back some time in your day. Brandon, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you're comfortable with everything that was reviewed. If you need to refer to this webinar again, it will be posted on our website by the same time tomorrow. That's at wesuite.com/webinars, or you could find it under the Training Webinars tab under the Education header. Next Tuesday, June 18th, will be our user webinar covering the e-sign integrations that WeSuite has to offer. Take care and have a great day, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.